Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to Gills and the Blood TV. Hope you are still all looking after each other and staying safe. I'm back this evening for part 4 of my Gills by position mini-series. It is the final part looking at strikers, and very similarly to midfielders, this has probably been the hardest section for me to try and find a top 5. I could have done a top 10 and I'd still have plenty missing out. Such was the options in terms of talent to look through in my time watching the football club. But let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into it. I'm going to go back to January of 1997 for my first pick. A young man that arrived for $250,000 from Norwich City. That is this man coming up on your screen. Adi Akinbaye, all pace, all power when he arrived. Still very young at the time, very green, I suppose is the word, if you want to use a horse racing term. But boy, did he have ability. Like I say, he had absolute pace to burn, and if he got away from a defender, there wasn't anyone that was going to catch him. And he helped us at the back end of that 96-97 season. We were struggling in the bottom half of the old Division 2, which is now League 1 under Tony Pulis, having been promoted the season before. And we needed a little bit of impetus, and Addy provided that. Came in and scored on his home debut, I think it was, at home to Plymouth, in a game that I remember vividly for the fact that from the Rainham end, we couldn't see the goal at the Old Town end. It was that foggy. The old floodlights were just about doing enough to keep the game on. And luckily it did get done, because I think we ran out 4-1 winners and Addy got one of them. And he ended the season pretty strongly, having arrived in the January, like I've already mentioned. Scored a double in the final home game of the season against Shrewsbury to end up with 7 goals in 19 appearances at the back end of that campaign. And like I say, it really helped us out, really gave us some momentum, really improved our results, and we ended up staying up pretty comfortably in the end. Tony Pulis then brought in some more additions in the summer of 97, and 97-98 represented a campaign where we had a real go at trying to gate crash the top 6 and the upper echelons of that division. And Adi was super consistent throughout that campaign. Never went more than 4 games without a goal, which I think as a striker is really good at any level. And scored 22 in 49 appearances that season. We ended up finishing 7th on the final day, like I've already mentioned. Nicky Southall's cross-come shot hit the post in the last minute of the last game against Wigan, and it wasn't quite to be. But yeah, probably the only thing I'd say, not against Adi, but in terms of what he could have achieved and what he did, was that he probably peaked with us, with Bristol City and with Wolves, and after that he went to the Premier League with Leicester City, and maybe the move came too soon and it never really worked out. And after that he became a bit nomadic, had plenty of clubs throughout the back end of his career. Stoke, Burnley a couple of times, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, Houston Dynamo and Notts County, and he just never seemed to replicate the form that he'd shown at the Priestfield, then Ashton Gate and Molineux, unfortunately. But in terms of what he'd done for us, 29 in 68 appearances at the very early part of his career was a fantastic return, and he was one of the very early strikers that I remember seeing consistently, and weirdly never scored a hat-trick for us in them 29 games. Got 7 doubles though. Remember a winner against Fulham when we was having our battles with them at the end of the 90s. It was unfortunately overshadowed, that game, after the death of a Fulham fan after the end of the match. But Addy scored a really good couple of goals in that game to win us the match, and could finish with either foot, and he was decent in the air, wasn't he? Yeah, like I say, one of my first vivid memories of strikers. at the football club. Obviously there was some 95, 96, and we'll get onto them at the end. But yeah, AD was really good for us. Definitely deserved his move to Bristol City, and then he done really well for them, and definitely deserved his move to Wolves. And then unfortunately the wheels came off a little bit, but he still had a very decent Football League career. Not so much in the Premier League, only 11 goals in 50 odd appearances for Leicester. But for us, he was very, very good. My next pick is a player that did play alongside Adi Akinbaye. Cult hero, cult song. You don't need to hear anymore, but here comes his name. Ife Honora. What was his mixed heritage? Nigerian / Liverpudlian / Scottish, I think it was. But regardless of who he could have played for internationally if he'd ever got picked, he was a larger-than-life character off the pitch. He was a large character on the pitch. He was a battering ram. There wasn't a lot about Ife Honora that was too subtle. He was an absolute monster. I wouldn't have fancied a 50-50 with him, to be honest, if I was a centre-back or a full-back or a defensive midfielder in that era. Left absolutely everything on the pitch. Left pretty much everything on opposing players at times, and there's a couple of red cards if you watch YouTube. One goes around on one of them crap 90s videos on Twitter, where he gets into an altercation with a couple of Wrexham players. One of them gives him a little shove, so he just boots him around the front of the shin and then claims his innocence before being dismissed, a straight red card. But that was iffy, when he played on the edge at times, and he went over the edge at times. There's another one against Northampton, I think it was same season, 96-97. Tussles for the ball on the far touchline. Decision goes against him. He thinks he should win the throw-in, so he picks the ball up and launches it at the linesman. Gets a straight red card for that one as well. But that was iffy, and it was almost that sort of became synonymous with how he was, and that cult hero thing, and you almost sort of remember affectionately them things, even though it was stupidity at the time. But there was so much more to Ife than that. Very good left foot, very good right foot. Scored lots of different types of goals. Remember a hat-trick against Norwich in the Championship. Sorry, League Division 1 as it was then, I keep doing that. We were 4-0 up, ended up winning 4-3. Scored 2 really good headers and then a proper poacher's goal. One against Rotherham in 96-97 in Division 2. An absolute bomb from about 25-30 yards as a touch, and then volleys it over the top of the keeper into the top corner. Then he repeated that type of goal against Coventry as well in the Championship, Division 1. Similar type of finish as a touch, gets it out of his feet and wallop. Also remember the game against Chelsea in the FA Cup in 2001. They absolutely battered us for an hour, I think it was. Poor old Jesper Gronker had poor old Adi Pennock, who had to fill in at right back that day, tied up in knots, and Chelsea were 3-0 up and cruising, but we got back to 3-2 if he got one of the goals, and we scared the life out of them last 20 minutes before Ida Johnson scored their clincher in the last couple of minutes. And obviously Wembley 2000, Ife and was it Iandazu or was it Pat McGibbon, the centre half, challenged together. And although it goes down as an own goal, I still credit it to Ife. I'm sure he gets a touch and then it goes in off the defender. But I think the rule is if you get a touch and it's on target as a shot, then it's your goal. And I'm sure the defender doesn't want it. So let's give it to Ife. But yeah, he was really, really good over 2 spells. First time he done really well. Then he left and went to Swindon. And then he came back on loan and joined on a permanent again. And double figures in both of his seasons in the second tier says to me that his ability was a little bit more than he probably got given credit for at the time. He wasn't just a lower league plodder, a lower league journeyman. But yeah, I think it was more than just his football ability that made you fall in love with Ife Honora. But he did have plenty of that. There was loads of good goals, loads of good moments, loads of great memories created, and he played a huge part in that period when we were super successful, getting out of the old 3rd division into the 2nd tier of English football. And yeah, one of the most iconic Gillingham songs, I think, as well. Anyway, pick number 3. is probably the best striker I've seen play for our football club. He wasn't here for long enough. It's this man coming up on your screen now. There's a song we sing about John Akindi at the moment, and it's exactly the same tune, and it gives you goosebumps because it reminds me of the old Super Bob chant that we had at the late 90s, and quite simply, the cleanest striker of a footballer I've ever seen. Never looked like he was actually hitting it that hard, but whether it was with outside of his foot, the inside of his foot, the laces, side foot, if it was on target, 9 times out of 10 it went in. But weirdly, Super Bob took quite a while to get going after arriving in the summer of 1998 for £500,000, which was a lot of money back then. I think he joined in the same summer as Carlos Arba, who arrived for 600,000. And they formed a very, very deadly partnership, didn't they, for the best part of 18 months. We know Carl was injured for some of that, and then Super Bob left, unfortunately. But yeah, he got 3 in his first 19 games for us, Bob Taylor. Was labelled overweight and unfit by some parts of the Gills support after a couple of months, which quite frankly was ridiculous. He'd only been there 8 weeks. He was playing catch up in terms of having no pre-season. In his last 19 games for us before he moved on to Manchester City for £1.5 million, he scored 18 goals. So he was going at a goal a game, which 20 odd years ago was an absolutely phenomenal strike rate. The very best in the world go at a goal a game these days. The Ronaldos, the Messis, the Neymars, the Ibrahimovics, that type of player. But he was doing it 20 years ago, albeit at a slightly lower level. He ended up with 39 in 70 games for us in all competitions. Scored 14 in his last 9 games, which is an absolutely staggering strike rate. 14 goals in 9 games. He was going 1.5 a game for his last 2 months at the club. Scored 2 hat-tricks in that time. First one against Wrexham, but the one I remember more vividly is the one against Bristol City. Tony Pulis coming back as a manager for the first time since being sacked. I think Bob only come on at half-time or after an hour because he'd been struggling with a groin problem. 3 of the best goals you're ever likely to see. Go on YouTube and find it because they're absolutely brilliant. I'm not going to try and describe them. I'll try and talk you through the last one. He goes inside out on a free kick. It's the wrong angle. It should be a left footer taking it, but he whips it from right to left into the side netting of the wrong corner. Keeper just watches it fly in the top corner. He wasn't even fit. Absolutely ridiculous hat-trick. Just a super player. Obviously the season before that, scored 5 in a game, became the talk of the national press, the local press, was in all the tabloids, was getting interviews left, right and centre. Got 4 before half-time, didn't he, in that game at Turf Moor, and I think got applauded off by the home supporters. He was that good that day. Just a freak, I think is the word, in the nicest sense, because everywhere else he went, he never reached them heights, didn't even come close. But for 18 months with us, he was just an absolute joke. Pretty much everything that he hit went in. Scored 2 against Bournemouth on Sky in the promotion season before he departed. Just kept adding a couple of 100,000 to the price tag, didn't he? And although he wasn't at Wembley for the second final against Wigan, he played a huge part in us getting promoted that season, because quite simply, without his goals, we would not have got in the playoffs. We would not have got to Wembley, and we would not have seen off Wigan. I'm not just saying it was just him, but he was a monumental part of that promotion drive, that campaign, wasn't he? Probably should have been on the winning side the year before, because he scored at Wembley, didn't he, to put us 2-0 up after Carlos Arba's back heel had put him in, and he drilled it under Nicky Weaver from about 18 yards. And then we all know what happened. I've spoken about it enough on this mini-series. I'm not going to talk about it again. But yeah, for me, the greatest striker to play for Gillingham in terms of ability, in terms of how he struck the ball. I know he's not scored as many goals as plenty of others, the Brian Yeos, Stevie Lovell, Cody McDonald, and plenty of others that are on that list. There's plenty of great players, don't get me wrong, but the time we had him, especially that second season and towards the time when he left, he was unplayable for 12.5 games. Absolutely unplayable. Just a shame that it never really worked out for him at Manchester City, and then he went to Wolves and come back to Gillingham for a short loan spell and got played out of position, didn't score a goal, and at the time people were worried that was going to ruin his reputation. Not a bit of it. The Bob Taylor at his peak for Gillingham Football Club, I can't say enough, was the greatest striker I've ever seen live, and will long live in the memory. And yeah, super Bobby Taylor. So good. Anyway, enough reminiscing. Pick number 4 is a bit more modern day. We fast forward all the way to 2010 when he arrived on loan as part of the Simeon Jackson deal that took him to Norwich. You know who it is. It's this man coming up on your screen right now. Is of course Cody McDonald. As I say, arrived summer of 2010 on a season-long loan to join Andy Hessenthaler's push for promotion out of the basement division. Scored 25 goals in that campaign. We missed out on goal difference, I think it was, which was very, very harsh. Then he obviously went back, and then we got him back again on loan, 2012-13. He came in at the back end of that season. Didn't have a huge part to play, and he played 7 times, but he scored 4 goals. And we went on to win the League 2 title under Martin Allen. Summer of that year, we got him on a permanent deal, didn't we? I think it was. Yes, we got him on a permanent that year. And he ended up being 9th in all-time goal scorers list before he left in the spring of 2017 to move on to Wimbledon. And in that period of time, there were plenty of goals, plenty of performances, plenty of magical moments. Got to double figures in all of his full campaigns with us, aside from 2015-16 when he was injured. I think he missed the beginning of the season due to an injury he picked up in pre-season. Came back end of September, come off the bench and scored in that 5-1 win against Fleetwood. That was the game where Rory Donnelly scored an outrageous clip over the keeper. And then he broke his foot approaching Christmas New Year, didn't he? Winning a penalty at Millwall. Got crunched by Jordan Archer to earn us the spot kick, and then it put him out for 3 months. And unfortunately, by the time he came back, the wheels had fallen off, and he couldn't arrest the slide, as it were. And it just does make you wonder whether he'd been fit for the full campaign, whether we'd have scored a few extra goals that would have been the difference between 9th place and the top 6. You never know. There was other factors, like I've already mentioned in this series. Bradley Dack, John Egan picking up injuries at crucial times. The form just falling off the edge of a cliff as well didn't help. But even when he did come back, scored an outrageous goal against Shrewsbury, a free kick from about 30 yards. Dacky rolled it to him, and he just absolutely arrowed it into the top corner. I've just had a look at that on YouTube. Fantastic finish. Scored at Burton, I think, to almost earn us a point before we collapsed and conceded in injury time. And I think that was, them 2 games were for me, especially Shrewsbury walking out of that home game where we lost 3-2. They only had 3 shots, I think, the whole game. They all went in. One was an overhead kick, one took a massive deflection. I just thought, we ain't going up this season. It was, you just could feel it, that it wasn't happening, that everything that could go wrong was going wrong, and it continued to do so, unfortunately, and we didn't win any of our last 8 games. But yeah, loads and loads of really good goals, Cody. Do you think the last minute winner against Wolves, when they were absolutely brilliant in that 2013-14 season, we got battered in that game, scored in the last minute on Sky, went absolutely mental. Bristol Rovers was his last 2. Which I missed, Stocky missed, Boz missed, because we was on a stag do of mine in Germany, and we remember screaming and shouting at the back of the stadium tour, jumping up and down and jumping on each other, because we'd seen it on Twitter that Cody had clinched 2 goals in the last 5 minutes to win us the game 3-1, and with it almost safety, and then had to explain to our German-speaking tour what was going on, and he didn't quite understand, I don't think, bless him, but we didn't really care. In between that, there was a goal at Walsall, at home to Walsall, overhead kick from outside the box, absolutely phenomenal. Technique, top draw. And one that sticks in my mind was under Peter Taylor in 14-15. We'd not won at home for about 2.5 months. We were playing Leyton Orient, it was 2-2. Michael Doughty had been sent off for chucking the ball away. And then we got a corner in the last couple of minutes of injury time. Brendan Dickinson whipped one in, and Cody just caught it on the half volley from about 7 yards, and it flew in the back of the net. Absolute bedlam in the rain. I mean, I think I nearly broke a seat, for which I've apologised a couple of times. Jumped around, was going absolutely nuts, and stood on the seat and bent it a little bit. But wasn't my fault, it was Cody's, and I think if it had broke, I'd have sent him the bill. But there was plenty more in between. He was a really, really good striker for us. It's just a shame that we never, when we had the chance 2015-16, pushed on and got into the playoffs, because he could have been pivotal if we had got in there. But such is life, unfortunately. I'm not sure, I can't remember, we did speak to him last January 2019 for the channel, and he was so many stories. I can't remember, I think he said he never got a medal, but because I think we suggested we'd have a whip round so he gets one, because he definitely deserved one. It was a small part, but it was a huge part at the same time. 4 goals in 7 games was, you know, if you take them away, it could be a few points that we miss out on. We might not have won the league. But Cody McDonald, one of the modern day great strikers for Gillingham, and we've had quite a few in the last 20 years. My final pick is a man that now plies his trade in the Championship. Stocky absolutely adores him, probably more than I do. That's this man coming up on your screen. The big scouser, Tom Eaves. Long hair, top knot, journeyman lower league striker when he arrived, and I wouldn't say there was much fanfare or excitement when it was announced in the summer of 2017 that Tom had arrived on a free transfer from League 2 Yeovil. He'd scored 4 goals, I think, in 40 odd appearances in the previous campaign, and when he come out early in that season and targeted 20 goals, I think it was met with a little bit of derision. But Tom knew his stuff. Tom believed in his own ability, and had confidence in what he could do at that level. Said that he wasn't doing anything different when we spoke to him in January 2018. And he'd had a really good start to the season for us. Said that he was doing all the same things for us that he'd done at Yeovil, but the difference was stuff was going in with us, and it had been hitting the post and hitting the crossbar, hitting the keeper on the line and stuff like that when he was at Hoysh Park. But yeah, really, really nice bloke to go with being a really, really top player as well. Like I say, we interviewed him January, not 2018. We did a few questions about his career. He told me off because I almost pigeonholed him as a target man. He's so much more than that. Scores left-footed goals, scores right-footed goals, scores plenty in the air, can play with his back to goal, can hold it up, can run in behind, work the channel. Never gave defenders a moment's rest. And first memory of him was that game against Southend. I don't think we'd scored a goal, and he got hat-trick that day. He was pretty awful first half, if I remember rightly, and then he scored one second half, and it was like a switch had gone off. He was like Robert Lewandowski for the last half hour. Just couldn't get near him as defenders. Scored a diving header to put us 2-1 up. Then we defended like we did for most of that early part of that campaign, horrendously. Conceded to get the 2-2, conceded to go 3-2 down. Then we got a penalty. Tom Eaves stepped up. I'm having it. Awful penalty, Tom. Awful, awful penalty. Keeper saved it. He smashed it in from all of about 30 centimetres. And we were up and running for the season, and so was he. And that was one of 2 hat-tricks in his time with us. Scored another one at the back end of that season on the final day against Plymouth. And I'd asked him before the game whether I could have his shirt that season, and he said he'd sign it for me. Such was the levels of being a nice bloke, so to speak. And you can see it, it's right there. There it is. That's the Tom Eaves shirt. And when he scored that hat-trick, I said to Boz in the ground, I said, I won't get that now. And I said, I couldn't blame him in the slightest. It's a hat-trick match-worn shirt. Messaged him and sort of said, don't worry about it. He said, nope, you can still have it. I promised you it. So met him at the players' entrance. As he promised, it was signed. It was, excuse me, donated. Signed boots from that game as well to Darren Stock for his, Darren Stock? Well, I don't know why I called him by his first name. For his charity bike ride that he'd done a couple of summers ago. And I ended up buying them in the auction that Stocky ran. I got them for about 45 quid. So I've got the set now from that final day, which is excellent. And I still need to get a display cabinet set up to put his boots back into. But yeah, that was 2017-18, and then 2018-19 carried on where he'd left off, didn't he? He picked up an injury in pre-season, and we thought, he's not going to start the first game at Accrington, which he didn't. We went with Josh Parker and Brandon Hanlon up top, and we won 2-0. But Tom was off the bench for the last 15 minutes, back earlier than we thought. Started on the bench in the first home game against Burton. And Dean Parrott went down with a hamstring strain early on come Tom Eaves. Brandon Annah worked his socks off for 90 minutes, hit the post, hit the bar, keeper made 2 worldies from him. Tom Eaves strolls on, scores 2. Up and running. We thought, here we go again. And 22 goals in 2018-19. And it was only the phenomenal form of right back Barry Fuller that stopped Tom winning Player of the Year. And 2 trebles, like I say, for us already. 5 doubles in that time as well, in his total of 40 goals in 97 appearances. Again, he's not in the top 10, he's not in the top 15 of all-time goal scorers, but for a 2-season period, he was absolutely first class. And this is in a not very good Gillingham side, let's be honest. We were battling relegation most of the time he was here. We finished 17th and 13th under, well, Adi Pennock started the first season, but it was Steve Lovell. And he didn't sign a new contract, unfortunately. It's understandable. He wanted to go and ply his trade higher up, and he earned his move to Championship outfit Hull City, where he'd scored 8 in 30 odd games this season in the Championship before injury struck him, and I think he's ruptured an Achilles tendon, which means he's out for a few months. But obviously we don't know what's going on with the season at the moment with all this COVID-19 nonsense. But yeah, Tom Eaves, one of the most recent very good strikers that we've had at the football club, and he was a joy to watch for 2 seasons. Like I say, he's a really nice bloke. We interviewed him and he was absolutely spot on. Got involved with the silly questions. He's a big Liverpool fan, and we asked him Everton and Man United related questions, and he hated it, but he took it all in good heart. And then he got myself, Boz and Stocky very drunk at the Player of the Year do. Yeah, really nice fella, really top footballer, and I hope he gets back fully fit and continues to do his stuff in the Championship, because he more than deserves it. Right, that's my top 5 front men in my time watching the football club. Been some really good ones, haven't there? I've got lists here of strikers that didn't make it, that probably could have made it, that'll probably make it into plenty of your lists. If we go right back to the 90s, we've got Leo Fortune West and Dennis Bailey were instrumental in that first season under Tony Pulis. Steve Butler came on later on, helped us get out of that division, then scored a crucial second goal at the playoff final against Wigan at Wembley. Chris Pike before then, I didn't see him loads, but he was there for the back end of the 94-95 season. I remember him scoring a penalty against Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup after Kevin Pressman had been sent off. Who else have we got on there? You go further forward to that team under Pulis, you got Kevin Lisby. Again, similar to Cody's first loan spell, short loan spell when we won League Two. Wasn't there long, but scored instrumental goals. Got a double against Lincoln. Scored a late winner against Bournemouth on Sky. Carla Saba, phenomenal at his best, but wasn't there long enough, unfortunately. And the way he left wasn't great, if I remember rightly. Paul Shaw, superb in that slightly withdrawn role, second striker type thing, number 10, similar to like Daki plays now, but you know, 15, 20 years ago. Andy Thompson, how can you forget him? 25,000 he cost. Was phenomenal. Scored the winner at Wembley. Scored double figures goals in the Championship for us. Simeon Jackson later on scored the winner at Wembley to get us out of League Two. Was absolutely superb. A steal at 100k. Danny Kedwell, Raynham born and bred, scored the goals to win us League Two. Phenomenal. Marlon King in the Championship, Giapur in the Championship. There's so many. There's probably some more that I've missed. Mamadou Sadibi, cult hero type player. We've been blessed when you look at it like this, and just looking back over the categories, goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders and strikers, for all the horrendous seasons that we have and all the nightmare signings that we made. We've also signed some bloody good footballers, and we've produced some bloody good footballers as well. And it's great to sit down and reminisce and look back on all of them, because we have been treated to some really good players in our time watching the football club, and we know we're all missing the live stuff at the moment, and I hope that this little mini-series has kept you all occupied. Please keep sharing all the tweets that are advertising the videos. Please keep checking them out on YouTube and telling everyone about us. I am working on some stuff for some more content at the moment, but it's very hush-hush. I don't want to give anything away if I can't pull it off. But if I can, it'll be very exciting. Obviously, it's difficult because we can't go out and see people. It's impossible to preview matches that are not going to happen. And today is Monday, and we should be doing a Monday review of the Accrington fixture, but such is life at the moment, we can't. But when it all comes back, it'll be brilliant, and we'll enjoy it probably a little bit more, and we'll appreciate it a little bit more. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed the mini-series. I will keep trying to think of ideas. Unfortunately, the podcast is having to take a backward seat at the moment because we can't meet up, and unless we can sort something out on Skype, maybe we'll have a look at doing that. But keep staying safe, keep looking after your loved ones and those closest to you, but keep following the rules, and this will pass. Not sure when I'll be back with some more videos, but I will work on stuff. But until then, look after each other, and up the Gills.